Hello and welcome to GTV GOVERN Special with me, Ebenezer Ampaabeng. We have a jewel in the house today, and combined in her is an astute politician, economist, banker, lawyer, senator, and gender activist. She was a deputy governor of the then National Bank of Liberia, now the Central Bank. She was also the president of the Agriculture Cooperative and Development Bank, mortgage finance underwriter of the First Union National Bank, and chairperson of the Senate Health and Social Welfare Committee on Gender, Women, and Children. And I'm talking about none other than Her Excellency, Chief Dr. Jewel Cianeh Howard Taylor, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia. Your Excellency, you're welcome.
Thank you, Ebenezer. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you this morning.
And it's our privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. When you won the elections in Liberia, many people were excited. Beyond that, can you tell us how much of a task it was in winning the election, beyond the baggage, if you like, that people felt that you had because you were married to Charles Taylor?
Well, you know, the issue of elections and the hearts and minds of people is a very important process that Africa is still going through. Sometimes people get elected just because they love you. Sometimes people get elected because people are craving for change. Sometimes people get elected because the timing is right. And politics is an ever-changing field. If I look at almost a year ago and the process that ensued with the Congress for Democratic Change, the MPP, and the LPDP coming together in a collaboration to win the elections from the incumbent, was a tough order. But I think what helped both of us, Ambassador, we at the time and myself, was that we went out to every nook and cranny and spoke to the hearts and the minds of our people. There are times in history, in nations or families or communities, that is just ripe for change. And I think we were at that cusp in our history, that the ruling party had been there for 12 years, and the former vice president coming under that banner seemed as if they would have been giving that one party too much time. And I think we were the best option that people considered. I would like to say 1 year into office that the easier part was winning these elections. The more difficult part for me is the governance of our country and living up to the high expectations of the young people who went across the length and breadth of Liberia saying, this is our chance, this is our party, and we will do all we can to ensure that we win.
That leads me to my next question. It makes your job very challenging. How challenging is that?
I think it's a very challenging environment. The first challenge is the fact that there is an economic downturn around the world. And we had Ebola a few years ago, which further depressed our economy. A lot of the companies and agencies who were working in Liberia had to flee. Most people were so afraid of Ebola, we were left as Liberians, by ourselves, even though we got a lot of help from people in the international community bringing us drugs. But it actually further depressed the economy. And so we come in at a point where the economy is depressed internationally and locally. A lot of the companies had left after the Ebola and waited till the elections were over. So it's only now that they're trying to come back and restart the businesses. So it's a very challenging environment. The revenue is low, and the expectations are very, 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 very high.
Those who queued up to vote for you had hopes, but there are a lot of priorities. So what I'm asking you is your priority of priorities and what is standing in your way to achieving that.
There are three major priorities of our president, His Excellency George Manawia. As we toured the country during the campaign, and we went to almost every nook and cranny, the challenge was roads, roads, roads. And the fact is, if you don't have access to a community or to a particular group of people, you can't give them anything because there's no way to get there. A bag of cement, which might cost you $7.50 in Monrovia, by the time you get to some areas, it's $30. Wow. So if there are no roads, you can imagine the cost quadrupling on any project. And we were stuck in the mud many days. There was a place we got stuck for about 3 days.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And the southeastern part of our country, from the founding of our country, have never had good roads. And so the rainy season comes and they're completely cut off. And of course the campaigning...
Never had good roads? Neglected?
Yeah, neglected, and that's why that particular area is a little bit backwards. During the rainy season, which lasts almost 10 months, they're completely cut off. All of the roads are washed away. The bridges are in bad shape. Most times you can't cross. So normally during the rainy season, they are left outside. And so it was in that area that we got stuck for a few days. We had to take a helicopter out of there to come back to Monrovia. And so at the end of it, when we were putting together the plans and programs that we had hoped to expand for our country, the issue of infrastructure development became priority number one.
Good.
And the president comes from that part of the country. Ooh. So his campaign message to them was, you know, this is the last time you guys will go through a rainy season where you can't have access to the capital, and the capital can't have access to you. And so we've been working over the last 6-7 months, putting together the drawings and the plans to ensure that in the dry season, which starts in a few weeks, those roads will begin to be rehabilitated. And we're praying that by the time we get to the midpoint of our tenure, that those roads would have been completed.
Have you secured funds for that? We start projects.
That's the process we're in. There's some that we can do as a government. I want to take this time to thank the guys at ADB and the World Bank who have come, and the Swedish International Development Projects who have come in to try to help us source funding to ensure that those roads are done. The priority is to ensure that every here you call it provinces or regions.
Regions.
In Liberia, they are called counties. We have 15 regions or 15 counties.
Right.
And we want to ensure that by the time we leave office, or by the time the first tenure ends, we would be able to have paved roads to each of the capital cities, because that way you can now have access to those areas and begin to build schools or hospitals or economic trade.
Isn't
so that's priority
too
number
ambitious?
one. Someone has to do it.
Given the term.
Someone has to do it.
Right.
Our country is 172-year-old. Yeah. And in 172 years, no one has done it. And so it's a tall order, but I think if we concentrate, and everywhere he goes, he keeps reminding us roads, roads, roads. Because the roads tie in everything else.
Yes.
And so we're working on getting those projects done. Some of them had been allocated already during the Salif administration. We're implementing those, and where the shortfalls are, we're seeking funding, and we have a robust team at the leadership level that's working on ensuring that in the next 4 or 5 years that is done. In addition to that, we have 60% of our young people who are clamoring for all kinds of opportunities, whether it's education or economic activity, or just an opportunity to live out their dreams and expectations. We're also looking to fine-tune our youth programs so that we're able to begin to deal with some of that. But over the last 11 months, really, we've been struggling just putting together our proposals and seeking funding for some of the road projects that we need to do.
So infrastructure is one?
Yes. And youth development
is two. And the third one?
Gender equality. I mean, as I sit here, if I don't talk about that, then I would lose some face with the people we represent.
Right.
Because we are complaining across the African region that Women's representation at the highest levels are dropping.
Yeah.
You now have a situation where the likes of Madam Salif and some of the strong women, Joyce Banda, Joyce Mujuro, and other strong women are no longer on the stage because they're, you know, she's retired as Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. I think Joyce Banda is now running for president in her country. And so you find out that there might be 3 female vice presidents, but no, and 1 female president coming out of Ethiopia now. And other than that, you know, it seems as if we're losing ground. Even in the legislatures across the continent, I'm not talking about Rwanda, because you know Rwanda always tips the balance.
That's right.
And I think your president here, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, has also worked to ensure that there are women in governance across the spectrum. But apart from Ghana and Rwanda, I think the numbers are very, very, very low across our continent. And so the issues of gender equality is something that we're still hammering and working for to ensure that the numbers of women are increased.
Right. And women in Liberia, what are their expectations of you? They will bank their hopes on you, I surmise. And do you think they are reasonable?
And in my mind, I think another reason why we won these elections was that amongst all of the 25 candidates, the then ambassador, who is now our president, chose someone like me, Cianeh Howard Taylor. Some people might have thought it was a baggage, like you said, maybe because of my name.
Right.
But I've worked for over 20 years in my country. I think I've gone across barriers, and I think I've crossed the corner, and I've worked to ensure that people see me as an individual.
That's right.
Bringing something to the table, bringing my years of experience and my commitment to change and transformation, and my flag as a gender activist across the board. And so I think the women believe they would get a little bit more access. A few weeks ago, we celebrated Shiro's International in Monrovia, and the president in his speech declared himself feminist in chief. And so we're expecting that those pronouncements will actually taper into more women getting on board. He's working on bringing women on board at different levels. And I think it's a process, but I think he's someone that's prepared to work with women leadership to ensure that together we can build our country.
I realized that soon after taking office, you had a forum where women came in to offer their suggestions regarding the roadmap going forward. Were these factored into the plans you're talking about?
Definitely. Let me tell you what the issues we face as women. One of it is opportunities for girls. And we must continue to ensure that girls across the country are given access to educational opportunities. And that includes not just education, but mentoring. And that's a responsibility all of us have agreed that we will assume. No one person can do it. And out of my office, what I've done is to create, I had an NGO that I've been working with as senator. I now made it an independent NGO to deal directly with the issues of education and mentoring of girls. There's a new team on board, and they're going to run with it so that my political nuances don't affect that work. So regardless of what's happening in the political field, that the commitment that I've made to ensure that I will be a major player in ensuring opportunities for girls are carried out outside of the political landscape. And I'm happy that they're on board, and we launched and raised some funds for them to start. Today we have about 1,500 girls in school. We're trying to expand that base because we must have girls across the country. There were a few counties that I couldn't access because there was no way to get there. So we're hoping with the dry season coming up now that we'll go and visit and identify these girls. What that project would do also is to see what the mothers are doing. Because you can have a girl in school, she gets home at the end of the day, you know, she's hungry. Her mother maybe needs to send her to the market. You know, the other things that make girls overly tired at the end of the day that they can't really study. So we need to find out what the mothers are doing. How can we help? And we'll be doing a microcredit project with those mothers, those who are really destitute, to begin to bring them online, because if they have a way of surviving, then the girls are a little bit protected. there wouldn't be early marriage. The mother would protect that daughter. There wouldn't be a case maybe where she would be sexually exploited because people say, oh, you know, we're stranded. You are the daughter. What are you doing? You know, sometimes mothers tell their daughters, you are of age now. Can you go and find a husband or someone who will help take care of you? In the end, the family gets taken care of. But so if they have that cushion, it provides a little bit, you know, support for those girls. So those are some of the things we'll be doing.
Right.
On the other end, we have to encourage women to get involved in political processes and governance. I want to go back a little bit to doing the campaign, and I remember how I was really abused. A lot of sexual innuendos were thrown at me.
During the campaign?
During the campaign, you know, and it was a lot. And some of the women would call and say, I don't know how you do it. I'm never going to get involved in politics. Because it can become dirty. The men feel that they have to do that to kind of denigrate you in the eyes of others. What it's doing is like pulling women away.
It's an African problem.
Yeah, and I keep telling them, you know, as difficult as it is, you just have to stand. If this is what you believe in and you want the change that we all hope to see in our lifetime, then you can't be a coward. You must stand up for what is right and be willing to just stand if there's an issue and say, well, you know, I don't believe we should go left, we should be going right. And state your ground and work to get it done. And
you did and pulled through.
By the grace of the Almighty God.
Amen. These women you're extending credit to, or you're about to extend credit to, so they can put their lives together. Is it coming with training? Because not all of us, not all women are business inclined to be able to turn around monies you give them. The history of our country, in some respects, is that when people are given money from government, they think they don't have to pay back and they squander. They don't have any training, so it doesn't really benefit them. How are you approaching it?
Well, there's an MAE unit attached to the NGO that will be monitoring and providing, you know, a little small training in accountability. And, you know, people have businesses and they don't pay themselves. So what you do in the end is you just eat the money.
Sure.
But if you have a small pay that you get every month, then you can save and do other things. So we have county-wide or district-wide small teams that will be looking at these issues and helping. If there's a problem, what is it? So each province or region, like in your area, each county, we have a small team that will sit with the women who we have chosen to be involved in this process and actually provide some outlook to them, inform them what will be happening, and then we'll inform the other community members, because if 10 persons, for example, are able to access this funding, the community have to watch it over to ensure that they pay it back. Good. We're going to give them chance. It's not going to be a 3-month thing, because you know nobody can make money in 3 months. So we'll make maybe 6 or 9 months, but then you have to find a way slowly to pay it back so that it becomes a revolving fund for others. So we'll have other community members that will be involved to oversee it. And if there's a problem, we catch it right there and fix it, so it doesn't go into a circle where people lose the funding that's given them and they don't utilize it properly. So we'll bring some community people involved to kind of see what's going on and to overshadow these people and to find a way where they can save some of what they're making. Because that's another thing, African families don't save. We get paid and we use everything that we make every month.
Hand to mouth.
Yeah, and then so by the time, that's what it is. And by the time you have a crisis, then you have to go and start begging other people and you're making a nuisance of yourself.
Right.
So that is something we must teach also. How do we begin to save so that in the end there's a nest somewhere just in case there's a problem. You
are the incumbent senator for Bong County.
No, our constitution doesn't work that way. Once you are elected at another level, you have to relinquish that title. So I'm no longer senator. They've had re-elections in Montserrado and Bong.
Right.
So both the president and I have been replaced by others in our constituency.
Right. So can you let us in a little on the structure of governance of Liberia?
And it's pretty much like the United States. We have a two-tier legislature, House of Reps and Senate. The president is head of the executive branch. The vice president is vice. So we have an executive branch, a legislative branch made of 2 houses, and then the judiciary.
Right.
So you can't hold a position as a minister and a member of the House of representatives like you do here.
Oh, yes.
You'll be overwhelmed. I don't know how they do it because just dealing with constituency issues are overwhelming, and then you have another portfolio as a minister. So in our country, in order to spread governance and to allow a more even leverage for others to take part, if you're a senator, you're a senator. If you're a member of the House of Reps, you are only that. If you're in the executive branch as a minister in the different sectors, you remain in the executive branch. So there are 3 branches separate for coordinating.
Yes. So then we have proper separation of powers.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Maybe Ghana will get there one day.
We have to, because the burden is
and
too
it's
much.
Overwhelming.
And yes,
I wouldn't want to be in a system where I'm Minister of Education, especially in the critical areas, and then you're MP. Who do you serve? It's tough, and so it's just my thought.
Yeah, that's okay. We are seeking to come together, so that's fine. Let's look at one activity that you embarked upon when you were senator. You attempted to introduce legislation that would make it punishable by death, the death penalty to be visited upon homosexuals, and it was shut down. Now that you are in office, are you considering that?
And you know, it wasn't a bill that sought to kill anyone. A conversation ensued across Africa at that time, and I think aid was being tied to more rights.
That's it. And
for us, the issue of homosexuality, even though it's becoming real, is not an African way of life at all. And our laws specifically state that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. And what I sought to do was to ensure that not now or in the future, there will be homosexual marriages in our country. And so I added that the law already said marriage is a union between a man and a woman. And I added a small clause, and no same-sex marriages will be allowed. And that's what I sought to do. The Senate passed it, and it went to the House of Representatives. In fact, the current House of Representatives is considering the bill. For the first time in our country's history, everyone was on board. Wow. The traditional leaders, the religious leaders, civil society, you know, maybe 90%, 99% of the population said, no, this is not something we would like. And so we want to secure the issue of marriage because it should be a union between a man and a woman. As a Christian, I think God created marriages for procreation. He says, go out and multiply. That's right. And subdue the earth. And I think homosexuality is something from the pit of hell. And I'm not saying others should not live the way they live. I'm just being practical. Right. When you're in the closet of your home, whatever you do is your own business. And I'm not interested in what people do
in their bedrooms.
In their bedrooms. I think that's the privacy that everybody is allowed. But I look at it in a way where the actual context for which man and woman was created is now being attacked. If you go to Genesis, you'll find out that God created everything, and then he created man, and he said it was perfect. And it took a while, and I don't know how long it took for him to create woman, realizing, hey, everything else he created had a way of mating and procreating, but then with a man and without a woman, the procreation process would have just stopped there. So even God, in his infinite wisdom, realized that he needed the human race to procreate, and he could have given Adam two organs. You know, like there are some animals, there are some animals that can actually procreate by themselves. There are some strange animals that have that potential. But man didn't have it, and then he realized that there was something missing. I don't know how long it took, because I think when he created Eve, she was a full-grown woman. She wasn't a baby. She wasn't a teenager.
She was ready for Adam.
She was ready for Adam. She was ready to procreate. So God in his wisdom wants that procreation, wants the human race to improve and to increase. But the issue of same-sex marriages are anti to what God's plan is, because if you have two men or two women, there's no way they can procreate. Of course, the world is moving, and they're creating all of these new things, and you have people who are same-sex partners adopting children, and
whose child are they?
That's the thing, and you're creating a whole new concept where the little children will say, hey, I have two mothers, I have two fathers. Is that how God intended it? No, I think God intended that there will be a man and a woman in a process for procreation. And I think that's the point that we were trying to come from.
Okay, let's look at something that's common to West Africa. You are an economist of great repute. The echo, the common currency that we seek to have as West Africa to help integrate us faster, has not been realized. We have missed deadlines upon deadlines. What's your view about the ECHO?
And we have to look at the whole process of integration in our region. You still need, I mean, you get to immigration and you're processed. They say, oh, you're an ECOWAS citizen. In the true sense of the word, it's just a title. It has not yet taken root.
Yeah. And
like Europe, you can go across Europe. You know, you don't have to go through any immigration. You don't have to do anything. It's considered one grouping of citizens. You can leave Ghana and go and just find a job in Monrovia. If you were a European country, you could do that. But a Ghanaian going to Monrovia for a job will find it difficult. People will say, hey, we don't have jobs now.
Yes.
How are we giving Ghanaians our jobs? If you come here, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you try to get resident papers, it should take a few days because we're ECOWAS citizens. Some people take 2 years before they can become resident here in Accra. So, you know, all of the other things that could fall into place first are still not in place. And so I think the last thing that will come about will be the ECHO.
Right.
If you still have governments that want to hold on, you know, there are strong economies, there are weak economies, and presidents are holding on, countries are holding on to sovereignty. Okay, we want to be a part of the ECOWAS region, but I want to hold on to this.
People are actually playing games. They come to meetings and they profess they are in support, but the actions...
In actuality, the actions don't prove it. And so I think we need to go a little bit further in ensuring that these little things are done. And maybe when we get to the point where we see each other as one, which we actually are, because there are families that are interrelated and all kinds of things are happening by bloodlines. If you trace bloodlines of families in the region, we're all related somehow.
That's true.
Then you look at the Francophone ECOWAS countries. That's a whole different issue. Are they prepared to give up their francs? Then you look at the English-speaking parts of the region. Each one, the cities want to be kept in Ghana.
Yes.
The US dollars. Even in Liberia, our own currency is not as valued as the US dollar. So there are a lot of economic things that need to be put into place. And the integration has to be done in a way where people feel secured across the area before we can talk about the ECHO. I think it's still a far way away. We hope that some of the smaller things that can be done can be given. We have the ECOWAS Parliament. They should be making laws for ECOWAS. Those laws that they make are not even domesticated at the local level. So they're up in Abuja, they're making laws, they're talking about things that are not yet domesticated. So it's an idea that we're toying with, has not yet taken root, and I think we need to do some of the smaller things first to build confidence. And there has to be maybe a meeting of the minds on the ECHO. What are the benefits? What are the negatives? What will happen to the countries that are strong? What will happen to the US dollar that is a ploy for economic growth in Liberia? If we're part of the ECHO, what do we do with the US dollar that runs line in line? You know, we get paid in Liberian dollars and US dollars in Liberia.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, we get paid. A portion of our salaries are in US dollars. So you can tell how strong it is. So what will we do as Liberians with that US dollar that encourages companies to come and do business in Liberia? You can expatriate all of your funding. So it's a little bit more complex than we think.
I see.
And I think what we need to do is to really look at the smaller things and try to find a way to come together and get those issues resolved. And then that could be the last resort. But there's a lot more discussion that needs to take place at that level of the ECHO.
Right. Are the convergence criteria we set ourselves overambitious, or it was done in such a way that the result we are seeing now is what will be achieved and everybody will remain independent?
I hope we'll move to the next level, because if we are considered as a region, let's look at the ECOWAS region, as a bloc, you're talking about millions of people.
Yes.
So any business that comes, any opportunity that comes, there's a lot of benefits if you're an investor or if you are a domestic person in your country. So there's a lot of benefits. Look at the EU. I mean, you can tell how all of the countries somehow are moving together. The stronger ones are still strong, the weaker ones are being pulled up. And if there are issues, all of them get together and solve the issues, so everybody is growing together. And we need to get to that level in our minds. I think it's something that's beneficial. The discussions are important because people need to be comfortable with it. I think these conversations must continue. I believe one day we'll get there. I don't know if 2018 or 2019 could be the year, but I think the African leaders must do a little bit more every time to get to that point, because I think if we're one group, we have a lot more to benefit. Mind you, all of the resources of the world are still left on the African, natural resources are left on the African continent.
So much of it.
And there's so much we can benefit. But we're shipping off our oil and processing it somewhere and bringing it back. Why don't we have, 3-4 countries who get together and come up with a mega refinery, and all of the countries will send their oil and refine it, and then we can send out of and make more money out of it instead of us doing it the opposite way.
Is this difficult to do?
It takes leadership.
Yes.
At that level, it takes a strong voice at that level to pull people together, and I think that's where we need to go. That the leaders across our region can begin to look beyond themselves and look at what would be beneficial. If there was a refinery somewhere in the region, everybody would benefit. Even Nigeria, with the millions of barrels of oil that they send, I think they have 1 or 2 that are not really working to potential. So we need to start to think the other way. It's not about the money we get now. And that's the problem with Africa. We are a continent of people that want all of our benefits now. And if you don't keep seeds for planting for the next period, you'll be hungry.
Yes.
But you're hungry now and you say, okay, let me eat all of the rice I have. And you don't think that tomorrow will come and then you have to go beg someone else. We have to change the mentality of our people.
Jeopardizing the future.
Yeah. And that's what we need to start to look at. How can they, who are leaders in ECOWAS in this present time, begin to look at how can we secure the future of our children's children, and then maybe their mindsets will change a little bit.
Excellency, let's go back to Liberia. You have a 6-year term?
Yes.
You're fortunate. we have a 4-year term here.
We have a 6-year term for the presidency.
Right.
We have 6-year terms for the House of Reps.
Wow.
And we have 9-year tenures for senators.
Oh, yeah? Wow. That's lovely. What would you like Liberians and political watchers across Africa and the world to remember you by the end of your term?
I think I've been given a special privilege by the people of Liberia and Bon County in particular that began my political career to sit where I sit. And there's a lot of expectations. As challenging as it is, with all of the myriad of issues that we're struggling to deal with, I hope at the end of my political career, I would have been seen as an agent of change, working for not just peace and stability of my country, but working to ensure that good governance is instituted, working to ensure that women are empowered across our nation. And it will take a lot of work because you have to provide opportunities for them. But I think in the end, that's what I hope I will be remembered for, that the chance that I got to serve at this high level was not squandered, and that I did my very best to provide change at those levels.
In the midst of this load of work upon you, what inspires you?
What inspires me first is the fact that God has allowed me. If you look at my name and you look at where I come from and you look at where I was born, you realize that with the normal eyes, I shouldn't be sitting where I am. And God has a plan for Liberia. And I think He's looking for people with heart for service and not for self. And what inspires me every morning is that I remember that there are 5 million people who need hope, who need inspiration, who need to trust that I will do the best that I can at every opportunity for the betterment of others and not for myself.
Amazing. Any message for the women of Africa?
My message to them is that we must keep on pressing on. We must never give up because the times have changed. But it takes someone to decide that, okay, I'm going to do this. It's not easy. It's very, 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 very challenging. But I think when people hit the glass ceiling and you're able to go through it in all sectors, whether you're an amazing OBGYN doctor, or whether you are an innovative teacher, or whether you are a housekeeper, as a wife who's ensuring the future of your children and working to ensure that they achieve their greatest potential, or whether you are a female broadcaster or an owner of an IT company. Again, IT is now becoming an in thing.
Yes.
Women have to learn those skills so that we are up to the standard. But wherever you are in the different spheres of our lives, you must be willing to stand up. You must be willing to raise your voice. And we must work together. It's lonely at the top. And when you get to this point, you find out that you lose a lot of friends because you're busy, you're obsessed with getting your work done, and you might not have as much time to go and sit, and have coffee or have an evening out where women get together and talk. But we have to find a way to remain together. We have to find a way to listen to some of the issues. We have to find a way to advise each other and encourage and inspire each other. Ebenezer, there's something about women that is completely different from men. Mm-hmm. We learn by seeing and we learn by doing. A little girl learns how to dance by watching her grandmother or her mother dance. She watches the steps and she mimics it.
Yes.
And you learn how to cook. I always say, people say, your mother will say, oh, put a pinch of salt in that. What is a pinch of salt? Maybe when you do it the first time, you use all of your fingers and the food is salty. But you learn by doing. In the end, you know what a pinch of salt is as you cook. Learn it. After a while, you learn that if you just pick it up and make it too much.
That's right.
But you don't have a measuring thing on your fingers, but you learn to do it by seeing your mother do it.
Sure.
And so it's important for those of us who have made it to this level to be encouraged. I need inspiration too every day to get up, especially when I'm under serious attack for whatever reasons. Sometimes I say, oh, maybe I just need to step back. But when you do that, then you lose the space that other girls can say, okay, if she could come from a poor family and become this, then I too can become. But we must encourage, we must find a way to cushion those who have made it because it's difficult out there. And we must encourage them so they continue to walk the road and continue to leave the door open so others can follow. And I think my message is to stand up, find your voice, encourage one another, inspire each other, and mentor those who are behind. That's the recipe. Wow.
You couldn't have put it better. Your Excellency, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege.
It's been my pleasure. I hope we'll get a chance to come and visit Monrovia one day and see
I pray for that opportunity one day.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Yes, I've enjoyed every bit of the conversation, and it's been an exclusive interview with Her Excellency Chief Dr. Cianeh Howard Taylor, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia. Thanks so much for watching. See you another time. Bye-bye.